Oh, good. There's chairs coming up for all the people who are going to be joining me on stage. Good afternoon, everybody. How's your energy level out there? Late in the afternoon? Good? All right, that's good. Come on out, everybody. We're going to do our next panel right now. Please come sit down with me. Come. No? Sasha? Okay, I want to set up the panel that we're going to have for the next 30 minutes called Managing Natural Capital by just reading a very brief description to set the stage. The concept of valuing forests, wetlands, and ecosystems as assets has been gaining momentum in the public and private sectors. Simultaneously, a handful of corporations have tried to quantify the value of nature to help guide their business investments. What business benefits can this new discipline deliver, and will this become mainstream? We have a fantastic panel to address this. Immediately next to me is Marie-Claire Daveu. I got it?
Good afternoon. Nice to meet you.
Chief Sustainability Officer and Head of International Institutional Affairs for Kering, the company that owns Puma and more than 20 other brands.
Yes, luxury division and sport and lifestyle division.
Thank you very much. And Marie-Claire has come far. She's come from Paris to be with us. And I also learned that she shares something with Lisa Jackson, and that she was in government and now is in the corporate world, so they have that shared experience. Tom Kadien, Senior Vice President, Consumer Packaging for International Paper Asia and International Paper India. And at the far side of the panel is Glenn Prickett, Chief External Affairs Officer for the Nature Conservancy. Welcome to the three of you. Okay, Marie-Claire, I'd like to start with you. Your company has been at the forefront of what's known as EP&L analysis. My first question to you is to share with everybody what that means. And my second question is, how is this so-called natural capital accounting important to your business?
Okay, so what we call EP&L is environmental profit and loss account. For us, natural capital accounting or EP&L give us really real visibility in our supply chain, not only in our own operation, but also in our supply chain to measure our environmental footprint. And it gives a monetary value. So 2 years ago, our chairman and CEO, François-Henri Pinault, has decided to implement this tool for all our brands and to publish an EP&L group for 2016. So in few words, what is very important for us, because in our context, where we know the major issue of our century are loss of biodiversity, or resource scarcity, or climate change, we think that it's really important to understand our supply chain, to see where we have our high impact, where we have dependency. And for us, it's really a strategic tool to give priority in our investment, to reduce, of course, our environmental footprint, but also to understand better our supply chain. To give you a concrete example, when we are speaking about a bag, a luxury bag, of course, we take into account from tier 1 up to tier 4. Tier 4, it's cattle farming. And for a company like us, when we are thinking about CO2 emission, the most of them are becoming for cattle farming. So it's not so easy without having this kind of tool. So it's also for us this kind of tool, a risk management tool. It's also, I will say, a wonderful tool to have a common language with our financial department and with the financial community. Because I was in the previous session about climate change. When you are speaking about ton of CO2, liter consumption, if you are not sensitive or if you don't have the background about what does it mean, it's not so easy to understand and to be able to give priority to the investment. If you are speaking about dollars or about euro, it's really to build a common language that helps us to give priorities.
Let me ask you a simplified question, this EP&L, because it sounds financial.
Yes.
So which is more important, or how do you rank the importance? P&L on the one hand, that's money, right? EP&L on the other hand?
For us, I will answer in an easy manner. Sustainable business, it's smart business. Sustainable in our group, it's something that creates value, stimulate innovation, and stimulate creativity. But to have a good EP&L, a good P&L, to have a good business, we need to have tools. And the environmental profit and loss account is one of the things that we think is very good for the business because it helps us to anticipate the risk, to also better understand where are the most important opportunities for our business. So I will say it's a part of our strategy. And what I try to develop, it's really to have a tool that we share not only with our brand, but also with our stakeholders, because this kind of tool is very useful to be transparent and to explain how the group is working. And in my opinion, I think, and not only I think for you it's the same thing, the clients are also citizens. They are becoming more and more sensitive to this kind of topic. So we have also to be able not only to say we take care of the planet, but to be able also to give them evidence to show and to give some results. That's why we are very proud to be, I will say, the first company to have launched this process through one brand, Puma, and now to have the real objective for all the group.
Glenn, the Nature Conservancy refers to natural infrastructure. Would you explain what that means?
Sure. So it's really about putting nature to work for people. And as you just heard from my smarter colleague, Peter Kariva, nature solves or helps to solve a lot of the big sustainability challenges that we're talking about here at this conference, whether it's protecting people and assets from extreme weather, as we are with the Oyster Reef project, or cleaning the air around Houston as we are with Dow and taking that work to other cities, or providing fresh water to cities across Latin America. We think about nature as providing solutions to some of these big sustainability challenges. That's the idea of natural infrastructure. It's not a new idea. It's been around for a while. So over 20 years ago, New York City realized it was cheaper to help farmers restore the forests in the Catskills than it would be to build a new water treatment plant. But the idea hasn't scaled. And we see probably three big reasons for that. If Peter had more time, he would have told you that while we know this works at a general level, the science isn't really well developed to be able to really prove the efficacy of these natural systems as engineering solutions. And there aren't real design standards as a result. When you go to engineering school, no one teaches you how to build a swamp to deal with polluted water, for example, even though that is an effective solution. So there's a science issue. There's I guess you'd call it an agency problem. So in general, with a lot of these infrastructure services, there's a mix of a public sector role and a private sector role. So figuring out who should take the lead is challenging. And lastly, there's a financing challenge. And it's kind of like actually energy efficiency or distributed renewables, where to actually invest in natural infrastructure, you're often talking about coordinating the decisions and the actions of a lot of small individual landowners. So how do you finance that? It's more complicated than building a water treatment plant, for example.
And so with an additional 60 seconds, how are you going to solve all three of those problems?
Right, so that's what we're working on. In part of our strategy of the Nature Conservancy, we're working hard on this. So in each of these areas, water supply, pollution reduction, storm protection. We're working with leading private sector actors. Peter mentioned our work with Dow. We're working with public agencies like the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on floodplain restoration as a flood management strategy. We're working with the city of Philadelphia on green infrastructure for stormwater management. So we're trying to tackle the science and the engineering problem, and then we're also looking at policy and financing solutions for how you can scale it. So we're working with Swiss Re, for example, to build what we know about the science of coastal marshes and reefs to buffer storm surges, what Peter showed you. We're building that into their catastrophic hazard models, and the goal is to create financial incentives in flood insurance for more investment in natural infrastructure. And we're working with the Army Corps of Engineers to create a mandate in our National Water Resources Development Act, which is up in Congress right now, to do more large-scale wetland restoration around the country.
So we're on the theme of measuring nature, and I want to turn to you, Tom. The International Paper is a paper company. That means the world knows that means you cut down trees and you make paper. Now, you maintain that the forestry story is not well known and is poorly understood. What do you mean by that?
Sure. We're a manufacturing company, and we've been in this business for over 100 years. And you know, we make what our customers want. Right now, our customers, whether it's Unilever.
Thank you, by the way. You make, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Or our Ritz-Carlton cups, they want paper or fiber-based packaging that's sustainable, and that's what we make. And if you think about our business, you know, our primary raw material is wood fiber. We buy over 50 million tons of wood fiber here in North America, and it's in our best interest to make sure that there's more raw materials than there was 100 years ago. And the good news is there is, despite the fact that the population here has tripled in the last 100 years, we have more standing forest. So we spend a lot of time practicing sustainable forestry. We were the largest private landowner here in the United States for much of that 100 years, now not so much. But we practice sustainable forestry in Brazil, where we are a primary landowner. We don't own the land in Russia, but we do it there as well. We teach sustainable forestry, and we also do it in countries like India. So, you know, we are out there all the time pushing conservation as well as sustainable forestry.
You told me that only 0.7% of the wood standing on the earth is harvested each year.
That's right.
Your point in sharing that is that there's a misperception that you're saying that the perception is that companies like yours are cutting down the forests.
Yeah, well, particularly in developed countries, that's a misperception. In undeveloped or less developed countries, a lot more is cut down and used as fuel, as an example, than it would ever be used for paper or fiber-based packaging. So, you know, one of the earlier folks talked about, you know, the newsprint. That, you know, are you cutting down trees to use newsprint? And the fact is, most of the newsprint is recycled paper, and you have to have some virgin paper to replenish the recycled paper stream. And, you know, again, we're using renewable resources. We're farming trees. We're not just cutting them down.
Would you react to some of the measurement topics that the other two have spoken about? How does International Paper think about measuring these resources in the ways that they've discussed?
Well, we measure a lot of things, and in a manufacturing organization, you measure your inputs. Somebody said, you know, the 3 R's. Well, we try to reduce, and we do, reduce water consumption, reduce fiber consumption. We lightweight packaging to create higher performance standards so you can use less, and we do that in coordination with all of our customers. You know, we measure the amount of standing forests we have, the inventory of land, and the ages of all the trees, and we make sure that it meets, more than meets our needs. So, you know, we measure all parts of the value chain from, you know, from the land all the way up through our customers.
While I've got you, we're listening to you talk about this. I don't know if it's a pro-business bias or not, but I feel like I understood the story of that the forestry industry in the developed world has been a sustaining business for a long time now, right? I'm sure it wasn't always, but it has been for a long time. There was this popular notion 20 years ago, I think, that we were going to have a paperless society, and we don't. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we haven't gotten to paperless yet, particularly in printing paper like what you're holding. The demand here in North America is about half of what it was 16 years ago, 15 years ago. So clearly, digital communications and our mobile devices have impacted that. On the other hand, fiber-based packaging continues to grow here in North America. And if you go outside of North America into emerging markets, you know, we just bought a paper company in India. In India, half the people don't have electricity, so they're not reading their iPads at night. They're reading their notebooks, which are made out of paper, and it's a growing market in those parts of the world.
I have a thesis that print is a luxury product, and it's here to stay.
It is. It is. You know, it's not a one or the other. There's room. You know, I was listening to Michael Dell talk about bamboo. You know, I'll bet that Michael's company purchases more wood fiber packaging than bamboo packaging, but it's great that they're looking at new items and new ways of packaging products.
Is Jib Ellison somewhere in the room? Yeah. You have a question, Jib? I do. There's a microphone right behind you, magically.
Amazing. Hi. Glenn, I guess this would probably go to you. You mentioned, you know, this work you're trying to do with Swiss Re, and in general, the financial services industry, while it seems like they should be extremely interested in, if you call the true cost of ecosystem services, all the stuff that everyone's been talking about here, they don't seem to be there, and it seems to be very difficult. Everybody wants the true cost, like what is the actual dollar amount before, you know, we do something with that information. What are you seeing as a trend? Is the financial services industry really going to get behind this in a big way so that the companies next to you can actually begin to use this information to get lower cost of capital, et cetera?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Great question. I think it's starting to come around, particularly when we talk about natural infrastructure as an investment opportunity to solve problems more cheaply. So just 2 weeks ago, we launched with JP Chase a new initiative called NatureVest, which is really a joint effort to try to attract private capital, particularly impact investing, into some of these natural solutions. So we think there's a scalable market for these natural infrastructure solutions. Because we've got to get over some of these hurdles, we need some patient capital to prove it out. But both we and, more importantly, JP are pretty confident that there is a lot of patient capital out there in the impact investing community that would like to be deployed on some of these natural infrastructure solutions. So I think if we think about the upside of natural capital, I think that's attractive to the financial industry. That's what we're starting to see. By the way, you can, we just went live with the NatureVest website, and this isn't just about the Nature Conservancy and JP Chase. We really want to work with other businesses, other financial institutions, and other conservation organizations. So we'd love to get you all involved in this effort.
What is that website?
So you access it off nature.org, which is our Nature Conservancy website. So just go to nature.org and then search for NatureVest, and you'll find it.
Nature.org is a killer website.
Thank you. We like it. It's easy to remember.
Marie-Claire, if your company misses its P&L expectations, there's a good chance that your chairman will lose his job. What if the company misses its EP&L projections? Could he be fired over that?
I will answer that to reach and to continue to be successful in our business, it's really important to be able to implement an EP&L. Because in our company, but if we think about all the company in this audience, we are using natural resources. And above all, in our sector, we use leather, we use gold, we use precious skins. So if we want to reach a good P&L, if we want to be successful, you have to really to anticipate. So I can't imagine that we don't reach our P&L, and I think to reach and to have a better P&L, it's really important to have an EP&L. And you have to imagine that the EP&L will become really a tool to give priorities to the investment. So it's also something that gives us a way to prioritize our action, so to have a good behavior for the environmental side, but also to help us to reduce our cost. Because better you know your supply chain, your supplier, more you are able to work closely with them, and so to do the best choices, not only for the supplier, but also for the business of the company. So it's really win-win. And again, our chairman, it's also owner of the company, it's a Pinot family. So that's why he's really convinced that we have no choice. It's not something because it's trendy. It's not something because we can think and we have a lot of conferences about sustainability. I really think it's at the core of the business strategy. That's why he creates, I will say, a big team. We invest a lot in R&D. We have created a laboratory dedicated to find sustainable raw material, to identify new processes. So it's really something inside the business.
And explain, you mentioned that your target date for completing this first EP&L report for Kering is 2016.
Yes.
Why 2016? What are some of the things that take 2 years more to complete?
In few words, the story, sustainability was something where the company was involved for many years. But in 2012, Mr. Pinault decided to identify targets with quantitative objective and with a timeline. We take classical targets about CO2, energy, water, etc., and other targets more linked with our business. And of course, it needs time to implement, because if we are speaking about gold, for example, even if as a group we buy, I will say, a big quantity of gold, we need to work with also other actors to change, to identify the mine, and to change also the ecosystem around what we want to implement. So it's not only the company, but for some target, we need to embed many people. That's why it takes time. And for example, for the chemical substance, we have a roundtable today. We have an objective for 2020. But we think that it's an ongoing process. What is really important is to create a dynamic. And the EP&L help us to be sure that we reduce our environmental footprint.
And now that you've been public with this, have you found that other companies are coming to you and saying, tell us how we can do this?
We share, and we are agreed to share our methodology. It needs a lot of time, it needs a lot of investment, but we think that it's a good tool that we are ready to share with a company in our sector, but also in other companies. That's why we share our methodology. Of course, each sector has really to go into details, because the most important impact are not the same if you are a company like you or my company. But the overview of the methodology, of course, we agree to share.
More questions from the floor. Anybody? Yes, on the back. Please identify yourself.
Thank you. I'm Kathy Abuso with the Sustainable Forestry Initiative. And first a comment and then a question. You mentioned paper is a luxury product, and I would dare say that's a slippery slope, because paper is the product of literacy. It's the product of education, which elevates people to understand environmental values. And when we talk about natural capital, we as an organization are very driven to understand what are the different revenue streams that you can get from a living, thriving forest. And one of the biggest challenges we are often finding is sustainability policies that are delinking forest health with paper and packaging. And so there is this trend to go away from paper products with the idea that that's going to save forests, where until we have developed economic revenue streams for ecosystem services, it's actually incentive for landowners to sell their private forest lands to get a return on investment, to convert those lands into real estate development and other things. So my question to the panel is, what are the ways that we can start valuing this renewable resource, not this finite luxury resource, but this renewable resource, to grow existing markets and respect existing markets while attempting to grow new markets for ecosystem services?
And before they answer, I just want to clarify that perhaps I was making a journalism industry inside joke about the beauty of print, which some of us are very nostalgic about. But
well, it is a luxury to have paper for those who have it compared to those who don't.
yeah.
You know, I think when we think about managing forest resources, again, in the northern hemispheres, by and large, this message has gotten through. But we have to, the deforestation that's occurring around the world is occurring in other places, not here in North America or in Western Europe. And frankly, it's not yet happening in places like Russia. But you know, Russia has a quarter of the world's softwood sitting there, and no sustainable forestry practices. And a whole lot of illegal logging. So when a company like International Paper expands its global footprint, we've got to take what we know about best practices to these other places around the world and make sure that we're preserving the resources. And You know, the Sustainable Forestry Initiative is an industry coalition that works with, you know, us and our competitors and making sure that we do a lot of things right. One of the things we've done wrong is getting our message out about how, you know, creating demand for paper and fiber packaging is good. It plants more trees, and you're going to see more of that. We're going to have our own checkoff program coming up here as one of the other, I think it was the cattle industry was talking about this morning.
Yeah. Quick final word
Sure.
on that, please.
Yeah, no, thanks, Kathy. That's a great question. So we're a big believer in working landscapes at the Nature Conservancy. We've always worked with private landowners to figure out how to manage their lands more sustainably. So finding new revenue streams for those natural ecosystems is the name of the game. So, you know, Tom and I were talking over lunch about the work we do with private timber owners in Southeast United States to basically manage more sustainably and find new revenue streams. We're actually working with Marie Claire's company, Kering, to sell wool from sustainably managed sheep operations in Patagonia into some of their brands. So the whole idea of natural capital is how do we add revenue streams? So how do we make farmers water farmers for water supply as well as for crops?
And fiber cups replacing foam cups is a new revenue stream that, you know, Ritz and McDonald's are all over because of the sustainability aspects.
Marie Claire, Tom, Glenn, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.